Good morning. Today's short talk will be given by myself, Dr. Risha Gupta, here in the chapel at Royal Preston Hospital. Some of you may know that I work here in the newborn services, including the Neonatal Intensive Care Unit, or NICU for short. I was asked to talk about the theme for today, based on the passage from Matthew, chapters 2, verse 13 to 18, sometimes referred to as the slaughter of the innocents or the massacre of the infants. I appreciate that this may be a topic that some of you find painful, especially if you or a loved one have experienced the death of a child. So, as with most emotional or raw subjects, please be assured that the Fellside team and bereavement support services are there for you to talk to if you cannot talk to your families. So the period referred to in the passage occurs after the Magi, or the three wise men, had visited. Jesus was probably an infant at the time, so it was not when the shepherds found him in a manger in the stable, because that would have certainly breached the COVID multiple household rules. Herod, who was king at the time, had not heard any reports from the Magi about the whereabouts of the baby Jesus, so he felt insecure and threatened. He issued a decree that all males under the age of 2 years old living in the Bethlehem area should be killed. But we know that God had already advised Joseph and Mary to leave the town and escape to Egypt. It's a situation that reminds me of the Hebrews escaping from Egypt during the Passover, but in reverse, when God's angels kills the Egyptians' firstborn males, allowing the enslaved Hebrews to escape. I often wonder how many infants would have been killed in Bethlehem. At that time, it was a village or a small town, so likely many tens of infants rather than thousands. But still, we know that even one infant dying in such a way is one too many. There is also reference to previous historical accounts in the Old Testament of Rachel, a favourite wife of Jacob, wailing and mourning her loss. Rachel died in childbirth with her second son, Benjamin, ironically again on the path between Egypt and Judea. How does this situation that occurred 2,000 years ago relate to our current era? Sadly, death in infancy is still a major concern worldwide, globally, in the UK. UNICEF figures show that places such as Sierra Leone and Central African Republic, around 80 babies still die for every 1,000 born alive. Much of this burden is due to a combination of natural disasters, such as drought or flooding, and diseases related to poor sanitation, overcrowding, and poor access to healthcare. They lack antenatal care and medicines and vaccines for treatable diseases due to warfare and lack of health infrastructure as well. Closer to home, we recognise the burden of infant death is still unconscionably high, at between 3 to 4 babies dying for every 1,000 born alive. Thankfully, the political leadership is concerned about this and wishes to address it rather than cause it. A few years ago, the then Health Secretary Jeremy Hunt launched a national safety collaborative project focused on reducing perinatal deaths in mothers and babies. Maternity and neonatal services have been working together, striving to seek solutions in partnership with parents. This isn't just through technology and science, although no doubt, as in my area of healthcare, the fancy machines and medicines do make a difference. No. The main ways we are seeking to help is through our human relationships and kindness. Anyone watching the Call the Midwife television show will notice how those professionals dealt with the most tragic of situations, not just with their professional knowledge and skills, but also with a sense of warmth, duty and fairness. We saw on Christmas Day's episode how a mother carried the burden of several miscarriages and stillbirths alone, not able to share this with anyone. She was scared to dare to accept the possibility that she may have a life-born child one day. I won't give too much away in case you want to watch it on the iPlayer, but it is a Christmas episode, so the ending is worth waiting for. This may be a situation that people in our community have encountered. It's sad that history repeats itself in this way. The subject of miscarriage, stillbirth, and neonatal death was dealt with very differently in bygone times, even until recently. The dawn of the #MeToo era may not be to everyone's liking, but it has enabled people to speak out and name their grief, not just celebrities, but ordinary families. For those who suffer with the birth of a baby born too early or become sick at birth, or babies who are stillborn, it is important to first recognise and acknowledge that this precious life was still their child, a son, a daughter, grandchild, niece, nephew, brother or sister. Parents and families cope better with their grief and loss when they can acknowledge their role as parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles and siblings. The services of Preston NICU offer comfort and access to professional support, not just from the clinical team and bereavement support midwives, but also pastoral services, such as here in the chaplaincy. Jean, our head of chaplaincy, has devised this naming and blessing certificate that is presented after a small ceremony, which can be faith or non-faith based. Our NICU team give parents and families memory boxes to create and capture precious moments, no matter the outcome. We have strong links to Darien House Hospice in Chorley. One of our senior sisters helped set up their neonatal nursing team, who regularly now attend our NICU, virtually or in person, to offer support to all parents. Not just those with a dying child, but those who are bearing the emotional pain of a sick baby. Parents feel helpless in this situation, and Darien House have also been wonderful at working with them and the support to support their siblings in the family as well. The chaplaincy here also work with the families to help them to understand and cope with these difficult situations. A memorial service is held annually to commemorate all these beautiful but short lives. This butterfly tree carries the messages to those loved babies from their families. To be honest, those services are also there to help our staff cope. It's not easy when you've cared for babies and families in such close circumstances not to form strong bonds. We try to ensure staff are supported with their health and well-being so that they can cope, because otherwise they will not be able to do their jobs effectively and compassionately. And what about that partnership working to develop services that I mentioned earlier? Well, I know that many of you have suffered because you have turned that pain into a force for good, so that others would not experience the same difficulties. So many families have fundraised with our charity Baby Beat to raise funds to improve the environment where grieving parents can be with their babies and be felt to be cared for. I'm thinking of the wonderful family room on the maternity ward and the Little Ted's campaign to introduce soundproofing to provide privacy and peace on delivery suite at the Shower Green unit during those difficult times. So how does this relate to the reiteration from Jeremiah of the sound of Rachel crying for her children and Matthew's account of the tragedy in Bethlehem? For me, it means that God hears our distress and pain. He sent his Son to suffer that on our behalf because he knows too that to see innocence suffering is unbearable. But with faith in him, we can have his servants in maternity and neonatal services with the support of hospital and community-based pastoral and bereavement care, and of course our families to help share that burden. Unfortunately, babies will still die from natural causes, but hopefully working together we will reduce this misfortune so that history will not keep repeating itself. For God reminds us every year through the birth of his Son that we are not alone, and he hears our grief and helps to lighten the burden. Amen.